went to Las Vegas last February to look for arrowheads around the glacial lakes. I'd seen some videos about Great Lakes, Great Salt Lake, and I thought, boy, it would be great to find one of those huge arrowheads. I didn't really have any luck, but I did find some interesting things, and I want to talk about them. Share my screen. This is me sitting on top of a pile of lithic debris. Lithic debris are the flakes of rock that have fallen off of what you're doing when you're making a stone tool, like sawdust. And the flakes of rock are noticeable in contrast to the surrounding desert, which you can see in the background there. And there's a few stone tools in there. I found a Great Basin crescent, I think. That's what that is. I found a broken blade of some kind. A little bit, maybe that's a Great Basin item. I don't know. And I found a number of things. This, for example, is a bladelet of a style that was popular in France about 45,000 years ago. But I also missed a number of things, which I took pictures of the ground right underneath my feet just to show pictures of lithic debris. And going back over them later, I see, how could I have missed that? Why didn't I at least pick it up and check on it? And I guess it's easy to miss things against this kind of background. It's exhausting to look at that sort of thing. But look at this now. This is right next to a hunter's blind. And I didn't realize it was a hunter's blind. And I didn't look around very carefully, because if that's not an obvious jasper point of some sort, I don't know what is. So I think, although I didn't know where to look for things, I was looking for things in the right sort of place. And I have some things I want to talk about, because so when I got home, I started looking at aerial photographs, and the most important thing that I learned was that you could see those patches of lithic debris from the air on Google Earth, and you could fly around looking for other places where you could see lithic debris. And I'm going to take us on a tour of maybe 3 or 4 places around Las Vegas where you can find them. And now let me start just by reviewing the characteristics of lithic debris. Listen carefully. I know for a fact, because I was there, this is where I picked up those items, that lithic debris is kind of translucent. It's patchy. It's brown where it's been in the sun. And sometimes it even forms sort of ripple marks, like you can see here. Now, let's take a quick look at a few other places that are like that. And I'm going to go into Zoom and see if I can pause recording for a second while I switch Google views. So, for example, here is a wonderful little valley full of, let's see, I got to share my screen, full of lithic debris. Here, there's so much of it, it forms ripple marks. And I've been thinking about how that happens, but it doesn't matter so much. Let's take another look at, the translucency of it, and how it turns brown when it's really concentrated and in the sun. And the final characteristics of lithic debris is that it's not a physical characteristic of its appearance. It's more like examining the landscape where it occurs. Here, this real concentration happens on a little island in the middle of just above a confluence of a brook. You can see that where the edges of the water were up on the side of the hill, that there's a faint trace of sort of a stain of human activity. Sure, I like the phrase bathtub ring. The humans have left a bathtub ring. And one last thing about lithic debris is it's not everywhere. It's not geology. You can tell it apart from geology. The geology is uniform. There's certainly places where things are confusing, and so be it. On the other hand, there are other places where it's pretty clear. and I intend to go have a closer look at them. Meantime, uh, let's go take a look at some sites. So we were going to go visit some sites. This is going to be a tough video to make properly because I don't even have a list of the places I wanted to look. Where'd that go? What is wrong? We'll fix it. We'll fix it in editing. Isn't that what they say? All of this nonsense is going to end up on the editing room floor. A hunting site is a place where you're pretty sure you see a game trail going over something or around a corner, and you see a whole patch of lithic debris right there. There's a nice one down south of Las Vegas that could take you there. Now, there's a couple nice ones down south of Las Vegas. Could start out so we're back. There's another little glacial lake, and follow the brook that leads into it uphill to this little valley, because you're looking at those sorts of things, brooks that feed glacial lakes. Interesting idea. You look uphill and you start seeing smudges of lithic debris. And you can understand this when you go into a three-dimensional view of this place, because you go up the valley, fly up the valley, and you start seeing these patches, these vague patches of lithic debris, and then you come to a real concentration of it with a little bump and what appears to be a game trail going over the bump. As you look at it, you see the game trail wanders off, perhaps up to that shoulder, where there are enough piles of rocks lying around up there that there could be some hunter's blinds in that direction. Or the animal could have wandered off in this direction. And I feel like what animals do is they wander around. That's what they do during the day. And here's a patch of lithic debris. Not so much necessarily a hunting place. I don't know. And then you go on a little bit further, and then this is the high point between this valley and the next valley over. And a nice thing about the high point is that there's a little cloud of lithic debris up there. You sort of see how these things work. And that's my first example of a hunting site. Stop sharing. Okay, could clip this out. It could end up on the editing room floor. Okay, is this good? Right. So now we're going for the other hunting site. Another hunting site. There's a cute one right here. It's a video recording while I was fooling around there. Here's a place you would never find. This is another hunting site. How did I locate it? I think I noticed a little dark spot from above, which you'd be forgiven if you didn't spot it because there's so much geology there. Actually, I had to sort of look at it. I looked at the valley that kept coming up to here, and there's some sort of patchiness of, is that lithic debris or is that geology? I don't know. I have to go look more carefully. But this spot right here, you go up the valley to this place, and let's do it in 3 dimensions. You go up the valley to this place, and you come to this little smudge of lithic debris on. It's translucent, it's patchy, and in this case, it's on top of another little hill, a little knoll. That knoll sits on a low ridge that's the bottom of a long descending ridge from above, where the animals would go from the highland to the lowland. So if you'd started up the valley, you'd find that place, but you wouldn't be likely to spot it at random. You might spot these things and start to poke around out of curiosity. Okay, so that's another hunting site, and I'm just trying to remember, is there a third hunting site? want to show? Yeah, there's another hunting site I will show, and this one is not actually in Las Vegas. Give me a second. Okay, okay, I'm ready to share my screen again. Here we go. And let's look at the landscape from way above for a minute because the Colorado River is going to start to play a role in this story. I'm going to start realizing that all the archaeology that can be found the way I'm looking for it is in this part of the world, and it's all around the Colorado River. So let's go to Red Lake, which is actually in Arizona, northeast, on the way to the Grand Canyon, I guess, to the west rim, and follow the brook that feeds the lake, which is the same technique we've used in a couple of other places. Follow it on up here. Further and further and further. And what happens, this is called Hualapai, I don't know how to pronounce it, Wash. And where Hualapai Wash leads down to the Colorado River there. And where it meets a side wash called White Elephant Wash. If you happen to be zoomed in at that spot, and I was exploring the valley at this point, if you happen to be zoomed in at that spot, right there is a very classic little patch of lithic debris, which I think is a hunting site, although I'm not sure. The bits of lithic debris on the other side of the valley don't look like a hunting site particularly, but we're going to follow that road in a minute. Before we do, just notice that White Elephant Wash has a continuation of lithic debris focal points all the way up here. And then if you get into the side valley here, you still see little dark spots, which you think could be lithic debris. But then you start seeing places where that's not lithic debris, that's just geology. And it shades off into I can't tell anymore. And it doesn't matter. There's enough places here that you can tell that there, for example, there's just no reason for there to be a site there, not particularly unless there's a shoulder. Anyway, we go back here to Greg's Hideout Road. We zoom way in on this spot. See the lithic debris there? And we zoom right in and ask, well, what about down the valley this way? And as it turns out, if you go down the valley this way, there's some lithic debris. But after about here, you don't see it. And so the lower valley of this is not someplace where people were living or hunting. But this road takes us via a portage. Remember, a lot of this was underwater at times. Via a portage over to the next valley, and it's worth asking, do we see any lithic debris between A and B? And I think the answer is yeah, there's a spot of it. Or that could be geology. It's hard to tell. It's similar. It's in the wrong place for a site. So that could be geology there. And we're just not sure. Go over to the next valley. You see things that you think, I think that's lithic debris there. But you can't be sure, so you need to go look. On the other hand, where we started out over here, I think there's not much question that where'd that go? Yeah, not much question that that's a site. And there's good reason to imagine that that's a site. And we can scoot over here in the valley and say, yeah, there's more things there. So you get a picture here that people came up from the river, and this is where they started getting comfortable, right up here. And how that fits in with the time frame where Red Lake, which is basically uphill from that glacier, from that river, Must be a height of land somewhere. How does that work? No idea. Anyway, that's a very nice site. And while we're looking at big sites from above, the very highest point of the Colorado River is here in Moapa. And Mormon Mesa sits in between the two forks at the top of the thing with its own little glacial lake. No real evidence of lithic debris up here on the plateau, but a very pure environment. It's a couple of lake shores from the past visible, probably worth exploring. But anyway, those are my preoccupations. If you go north of here, and mind you, these tributaries are the tippy toppest place that you can get from the Colorado River, so they ought to be rather sacred and important. This valley here seems to have quite a lot of stuff in it, but it's a redder color, usual. This valley here has stuff in it, and I was poking around in here. I found a unusual stone structure made out of an enclosure of boulders somewhere up in here. And I zoomed out and I lost it. So I'm anxious to see that again because it was, as you scoot across this much of the Nevada landscape, zooming in and out and looking closely at things, you'd expect to see some surprises. See that. This is a site that's decidedly not a hunting site. We're north of Moapa in a wash, and you would expect to see some signs of um, past life along this shoulder, if at any time that was a nice place to live. And sure enough, there is a familiar looking patch of translucent, patchy, and site-specific lithic debris. And so that's interesting. You think, now let's look around the valley a little bit. There's a little bit of here, you see some more here. And this is the idea. You just go up the valley, and in this place, you go up the valley and you notice this place, which is quite interesting. It's a ring of hills with lithic debris on top of each one, off into the neighboring hills, but mostly right there. And you wonder, why would they all be right there? What kind of reason would there be for that to be a great village site or something like that? And then you notice these soil disturbances that the more I look at them, the more I'm convinced these are man-made things. Look at how there's two scratches, two there. These are maybe 15 feet apart. And I don't know, why would if those are sites, why would a native village be located right in that spot? Could it be because of what's going on here? Is it maybe clay extraction or something like that? I think it'd be interesting to find out because it's unusual. You notice it there, a few places nearby, and then that stops. Gee, are those lithic debris? But no. Anyway, so this valley has proved to be interesting, and you keep going up a little higher, you'll see an occasional cloud of material, then you go through to the other side, and you see a few faint traces of continuation, but after that, that's about it. The main fun is over here in the first place. So I've lost my way, but that's okay. I think that may be about it. I am going back in February. One thing you want to say about Las Vegas and the Nevada, Southern Nevada, is that it's bone dry. And it really, you can see from above, you can see, if the pictures were better, you'd be able to see every grain of sand. And so you can see these sites, like that first one we started with, just laid out all the different time, all the different people that might have been at that site, or maybe just a small group of people using that site. And the relationship between the different types of stone tool that you might find and the landscape where you're finding that particular type has the possibility that you could somehow figure out a little bit about the different cultures that were there, how they were overlapping in some places or isolated and unique in other places, and try to get a better sense of the many different things that make up the past of the Las Vegas area. What I want to say, this is what I want to say about final things, is that Las Vegas is kind of special. Not only is it bone dry, and you can see these sites in their totality, and every place else in the world where they excavate, they're just looking at a little dot. But here you can look at the whole thing. There's no real need to dig it up. You just look at it. And but Las Vegas is not just special because of that. It's special because it's on the boundary of the Great Basin. And the Great Basin is where the glacial lakes are, mostly. There's White Sands in New Mexico is a glacial lake. But the ones around Las Vegas are the only ones that were connected to the Colorado River directly. And so Las Vegas area, Southern Nevada, is the only place where there's going to be an archaeology of where the river systems intersected with the non-Great Basin river systems. Well, I don't know, Colorado River. It intersect with the Great Basin lakes. And the archaeology should reflect that. So we're going to go back and that boundary between glacial lake and river, in a way, it's like a boundary between the Pleistocene archaeology of the glacial lakes and the Holocene archaeology of the rivers. I don't see much opportunity for getting down near the rivers and looking at what the archaeology is down there. Seems to me that may be the archaeology of agriculture that's more recent. So I'm going to go back to Las Vegas. I'm going to try to check some of those places that we just looked at, and it should be fun.